Have you ever lost something that felt irreplaceable? Maybe a cherished item, a vital document, or even a connection that seemed to vanish without a trace. Imagine the sinking feeling when you realize it's gone, and the frantic search that follows. Now, what if I told you that in the midst of this chaos, a stranger appeared, someone you never expected, who not only returned what was lost but also changed the course of your life forever? This isn't just a story about a lost item. It's about fate, unexpected encounters, and the profound impact of a single act of kindness. In today's fast-paced world, we often overlook the significance of small moments and the people we cross paths with. But sometimes, a fleeting interaction can ripple through our lives in ways we never anticipated. This story is a testament to that. It's about a man who, in his desperation to retrieve a lost item, unknowingly followed a path that led him to someone who would become instrumental in his journey. The twists and turns of this tale will make you question how many of us have unknowingly brushed shoulders with individuals who, had we taken a moment to notice, could have altered our destinies. As we delve into this narrative, consider the times you've experienced a loss. Perhaps it was a job opportunity that slipped through your fingers, a relationship that ended abruptly, or a dream that seemed just out of reach. Now, think about the people you've met along the way, some memorable, others fleeting. What if one of them held the key to turning things around? What if your next encounter could be the catalyst for a life-changing event? This story isn't just about the man and the stranger, it's about you, the viewer. It's about the choices we make, the paths we take, and the unexpected heroes who come into our lives when we least expect them. By the end of this video, you'll not only learn how a lost item led to the salvation of a company but also gain insights into the power of human connections and the serendipitous nature of life. WQLN. So, stay with us as we unravel this tale of mystery, chance, and the profound impact of a single encounter. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this story unfolds. The days leading up to the incident were a blur of tension and uncertainty for Michael. As the CEO of a mid-sized tech company, he had been navigating a series of challenges that seemed to mount with each passing day. The market was volatile, investor confidence was waning, and internal conflicts among the leadership team were becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Despite his best efforts to steer the company through these turbulent waters, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping through his fingers. His personal life wasn't faring much better. The demands of his role had strained his relationships, leaving him isolated and questioning his priorities. Late nights at the office had become routine, and weekends were often spent catching up on emails rather than enjoying time with family or friends. The weight of responsibility was taking its toll, and Michael found himself grappling with self-doubt and a growing sense of helplessness. Then, the unthinkable happened. During a crucial investor presentation, a key piece of equipment malfunctioned, causing a significant delay and casting doubt on the company's reliability. The fallout was immediate and severe. Investors began pulling back, and the media seized on the opportunity to question the company's viability. In a matter of days, the situation had escalated from a minor setback to a full-blown crisis. Amidst the chaos, Michael received an unexpected message. A woman named Sarah claimed to have found a lost item that he had misplaced during the presentation. At first, he dismissed it as a trivial matter, but something about her message piqued his curiosity. He arranged to meet her, hoping to retrieve the item and perhaps find a momentary distraction from the mounting pressure. When they met, Sarah handed over the item, a small, seemingly insignificant piece of equipment. But her presence was anything but ordinary. There was a calmness about her, an aura of assurance that contrasted sharply with Michael's frazzled state. As they spoke, he learned that Sarah had been following his company's progress for some time. She had insights into the challenges they were facing and offered suggestions that, to Michael's surprise, were both practical and innovative. Intrigued, Michael invited Sarah to meet with his leadership team. What transpired during that meeting would change the course of the company's future. Sarah's ideas resonated with the team, and her perspective provided the clarity they had been lacking. In the weeks that followed, her contributions proved invaluable, helping to resolve internal conflicts and restore investor confidence. Looking back, Michael realized that the lost item was more than just a misplaced object, it was the catalyst for a series of events that led to Sarah's involvement with the company. Her insights and guidance had been instrumental in navigating the crisis, and her unexpected arrival had been the turning point they so desperately needed. But the mystery didn't end there. As Michael delved deeper into Sarah's background, he uncovered a series of connections and coincidences that suggested her involvement with the company was far from accidental. The more he learned, the more questions arose. Had Sarah been orchestrating events from behind the scenes? Was she a savior, or was there more to her story than met the eye? The answers remained elusive, and the intrigue surrounding Sarah deepened. Each revelation seemed to lead to more questions, and Michael found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about the events that had unfolded. The line between coincidence and design blurred, leaving him to wonder if the crisis had been averted by fate, by design, or by something else entirely. As the company moved forward, the impact of Sarah's involvement remained a topic of discussion among the leadership team. Some viewed her as a visionary, a catalyst for change who had steered them through the storm. Others remained skeptical, unsure of her true intentions and the extent of her influence. The mystery of Sarah's role in the company's turnaround lingered, a puzzle that no one seemed able to solve. And so, the story continues, with more questions than answers, more intrigue than clarity. The lost item, the unexpected meeting, and the enigmatic Sarah, each element adds a layer to the unfolding narrative, keeping everyone guessing about what will happen next. In the world of business, as in life, sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the most profound changes. Michael's search for answers took him deeper into a labyrinth of uncertainty and danger. Despite Sarah's initial assistance, the more he uncovered, the more questions arose. A key piece of evidence, a confidential email detailing a potential investor's concerns, vanished from the company's secure server without a trace. Attempts to retrieve it were met with dead ends, and the IT department reported no anomalies. It was as if the email had never existed, casting doubt on the integrity of the company's digital records. As Michael delved further, he received an anonymous warning: "Stop digging. You're not prepared for what you'll find." The message was cryptic, but the threat was clear. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching his every move, manipulating events from the shadows. The pressure mounted as he grappled with the possibility that the very people he trusted might be involved in a conspiracy to undermine him. In the midst of this turmoil, Sarah's behavior became increasingly erratic. She missed meetings without explanation, her communications grew terse, and she seemed to be avoiding Michael's attempts to reach out. Her sudden withdrawal raised suspicions. Had she been part of the scheme all along? Or was she a pawn in a larger game orchestrated by unseen forces? Desperate for clarity, Michael turned to his closest ally, David, the company's CFO. David had been a steadfast supporter, offering sage advice and unwavering loyalty. However, during a late-night meeting, Michael noticed discrepancies in David's financial reports, figures that didn't add up, transactions that lacked proper documentation. When confronted, David became defensive, his demeanor shifting from calm to confrontational. The encounter left Michael unsettled, wondering if his trusted friend had been hiding something all along. The walls seemed to close in as Michael uncovered more inconsistencies. A former employee, who had been let go under mysterious circumstances, reached out with information about a secret project that had been operating under the radar. The project, known only as Operation Phoenix, was rumored to involve high-level executives and had been shrouded in secrecy. The former employee claimed that the project's failure had been covered up, but the repercussions were far-reaching and still unfolding. As Michael pieced together the fragments of information, he realized that the conspiracy was more extensive than he had ever imagined. The company's downfall had been orchestrated by a network of insiders, each playing a role in the grand scheme. But the question remained: who was the mastermind pulling the strings? In a final, desperate attempt to uncover the truth, Michael confronted Sarah once more. This time, she didn't deny her involvement. Instead, she revealed a shocking twist. She had been working undercover for a rival company, gathering intelligence to sabotage Michael's firm from within. But as she spoke, her expression faltered, and she confessed that she had developed genuine feelings for Michael and regretted her role in the conspiracy. The revelation left Michael reeling. Had Sarah been a double agent all along? Or had she been seduced by the allure of power and influence? The lines between friend and foe had blurred, and Michael was left to confront the painful truth. The greatest threat to his company had come from those he trusted most. But the story doesn't end there. As Michael prepared to take action against the conspirators, he received an encrypted message containing a single line: "The real enemy is still out there." The message was signed with a symbol Michael didn't recognize, a symbol that had appeared in several key documents related to Operation Phoenix. The mystery deepened, and Michael realized that the conspiracy was far from over. Who was the true mastermind? And what was their ultimate goal? The answers remained elusive, and Michael found himself ensnared in a web of deceit and betrayal that threatened to consume everything he had worked for. The stakes had never been higher, and the path to uncovering the truth had become more treacherous than ever. As the investigation continued, Michael discovered that the symbol from the encrypted message was linked to a shadowy organization known as the Collective. The Collective was rumored to be a clandestine group of powerful individuals who manipulated global events for their own gain. Their influence extended into various sectors, including finance, politics, and technology. Determined to expose the Collective, Michael delved deeper into their operations. He uncovered a series of covert meetings, coded communications, and financial transactions that pointed to a vast network of corruption and control. But each step closer to the truth brought greater danger. Michael's every move was being monitored, and he realized that he was now a target. In a final, daring move, Michael confronted the leader of the Collective, a figure known only as the Architect. The meeting was set in a remote location, far from prying eyes. As they faced each other, the Architect revealed a shocking truth. Michael had been chosen as a pawn in a larger game, manipulated from the start to bring about a specific outcome. The revelation shattered Michael's perception of reality. He had been a mere player in a game orchestrated by unseen hands. The Architect offered him a choice: join the Collective and gain unimaginable power, or refuse and become an enemy of the most influential organization in the world. The decision weighed heavily on Michael. To accept would mean compromising his values and becoming part of a corrupt system. To refuse would mean certain destruction. The stakes had never been higher, and Michael faced a crossroads that would determine not only his future but the future of his company and the world. As the story unfolds, Michael's journey becomes a battle between integrity and ambition, trust and betrayal, freedom and control. The choices he makes will have as Michael grappled with the revelation that he had been manipulated into a larger scheme. The walls of his reality began to crumble. He had always prided himself on his ability to trust his instincts, but now every decision seemed clouded by doubt. The company's future hung in the balance, and the weight of uncertainty pressed down on him. In the midst of this turmoil, another unexpected twist emerged, further complicating the already tangled web of deceit. One evening, as Michael sifted through a pile of confidential documents in his office, a familiar face appeared at the door: Sarah. She stood there, her expression unreadable, holding a small envelope. Without a word, she handed it to him and turned to leave. The envelope was unmarked, its contents a mystery. Inside, Michael found a single photograph, a picture of his late father, taken years ago at a company event. But there was something off about it. In the background, partially obscured, was a figure he didn't recognize. The figure's presence in the photo was unsettling, as if someone had been deliberately hidden in plain sight. Determined to uncover the truth, Michael began to investigate the mysterious figure. He discovered that the person in the photo was a former business partner of his father, someone whose name had been erased from company records and whose contributions had been conveniently forgotten. The more he dug, the more he uncovered about this individual's involvement in the company's early days. It seemed that his father's success had been built upon a foundation of secrets and omissions. As Michael delved deeper into the past, he began to notice strange occurrences. Files went missing, emails were deleted, and phone calls were intercepted. It became clear that someone was actively working to keep the truth buried. But who? And why? In a desperate bid for answers, Michael confronted Sarah once again. This time, she didn't deny her involvement. Instead, she revealed a shocking truth: she was the granddaughter of the mysterious figure in the photograph. Her family's legacy had been erased from history, and she had been working in the shadows to uncover the lost history of the company. Her actions had been driven by a desire for justice, not sabotage. The revelation left Michael stunned. His perception of the events had been turned upside down. Sarah, once seen as an adversary, was now an ally in his quest for the truth. But the deeper they dug, the more dangerous their investigation became. Powerful forces were at play, and they would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. As the story unfolds, Michael and Sarah must navigate a labyrinth of lies, uncover hidden truths, and confront the shadows of the past. Their journey is fraught with peril, and the stakes have never been higher. In the end, they must decide what price they are willing to pay for the truth. But even as they close in on the answers, a new mystery emerges. A cryptic message arrives, hinting at a deeper conspiracy that threatens not only the company but the very fabric of their reality. The game is far from over, and the final twist is yet to come. Michael's world, once a carefully constructed facade of control and ambition, began to unravel in ways he couldn't have anticipated. The cryptic message from Sarah had left him reeling, but it was the events that followed that truly shattered his sense of security. Late one evening, as he sat alone in his office, the glow of his computer screen casting long shadows across the room, his phone buzzed with an incoming call. The number was unfamiliar, but something about it stirred a sense of dread within him. He hesitated before answering, his heart pounding in his chest. "Michael," a voice on the other end said, its tone cold and unfamiliar. "You don't know me, but I know you. I know everything about you, your company, your secrets, your weaknesses." The words sent a chill down his spine, and he felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "You've been digging into things you don't understand. Stop now, or there will be consequences." The line went dead before he could respond. Shaken, Michael tried to dismiss the call as a prank or a misguided threat. But the unease lingered, gnawing at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him, waiting for him to make a mistake. The next day, as he arrived at his office, he noticed something odd. His car, parked in the same spot as always, had a small, almost imperceptible scratch on the rear bumper. It was a minor detail, easily overlooked, but it unsettled him. Had someone been following him? The thought sent a wave of paranoia crashing over him. As the days passed, the incidents became more frequent and more disturbing. Files on his computer were accessed without explanation, his personal belongings were moved, and he began to receive anonymous messages, cryptic notes slipped under his office door, emails with no return address, and phone calls with nothing but static on the other end. Each incident, though small on its own, added to the mounting sense of dread that gripped him. Then, one morning, Michael arrived at his office to find the door slightly ajar. He pushed it open cautiously, his breath catching in his throat as he stepped inside. The room was in disarray, papers were scattered across the floor, drawers were open and emptied, and his computer screen displayed a single message: "We warned you." His heart raced as he scanned the room, searching for any sign of who might have been there. But there was nothing, no footprints, no fingerprints, no clues. It was as if the intruder had vanished into thin air. The violation of his personal space, the invasion of his sanctuary, was more than just a physical breach, it was a psychological assault. He felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly powerless. The walls that had once provided him with a sense of security now seemed to close in around him, suffocating him with their silence. In the days that followed, Michael's paranoia deepened. He began to question everything and everyone. Was Sarah truly an ally, or had she been playing him all along? Was David, his trusted CFO, complicit in the conspiracy, or was he another pawn in a game he didn't understand? The lines between friend and foe blurred, and Michael found himself unable to trust even his own instincts. One evening, as he sat alone in his office, his phone buzzed with a new message. It was from an unknown number, the message simple and chilling: "You're not alone." The words echoed in his mind, amplifying his sense of isolation. He had no allies, no safe harbor, only shadows and whispers closing in around him. The deeper Michael delved into the mystery, the more dangerous his quest became. He was no longer just uncovering corporate corruption, he was uncovering a conspiracy that reached into the very heart of his life. Every step forward seemed to draw him deeper into a web of deceit and danger, and he began to wonder if the truth was worth the cost. But there was no turning back. The stakes had escalated beyond his comprehension, and Michael found himself caught in a game where the rules were unknown, and the consequences of failure were unimaginable. He had to continue, had to uncover the truth even if it meant sacrificing everything he had built. As he sat in the dim light of his office, the weight of the situation pressing down on him, Michael realized the full extent of the danger he faced. He was no longer just a businessman, he was a target. And the shadows that had once been distant now loomed large, threatening to consume him whole. The mystery remained unsolved, the answers just out of reach. But one thing was certain, Michael was no longer in control. And as the darkness closed in around him, he had to decide how far he was willing to go to uncover the truth and whether the truth was worth the price he would have to pay. As Michael delved deeper into the labyrinth of secrets surrounding his company, the shadows that once seemed distant began to close in, suffocating him with their presence. Every corner he turned revealed another layer of deception, another betrayal lurking just out of sight. The walls of his reality, once sturdy and unyielding, now felt fragile and porous, as if the very foundation of his existence was being eroded from within. One evening, as he sat alone in his office, the weight of the world pressing down upon him, his phone buzzed with an incoming message. The sender was unknown, the message simple yet chilling: "You're not the only one looking for answers." A cold shiver ran down his spine as he stared at the screen, the words echoing in his mind. Who else was searching? And what did they know? Novella. Determined to find out, Michael began to retrace his steps, revisiting old meetings, conversations, and documents. It was during this process that he stumbled upon a series of emails, buried deep within the company's archives, that mentioned a project, Project Echo. The project was shrouded in secrecy, its details vague and its purpose unclear. But one thing was certain, it was linked to the very events that had set his life on this tumultuous path. As Michael dug deeper into the mystery of Project Echo, he uncovered a startling revelation. The project had been initiated years ago, not by his father, as he had believed, but by someone else entirely, someone with a vested interest in the company's downfall. The implications were staggering. Had his father been a pawn in a larger game? Had he unknowingly set the stage for his own demise? The more Michael uncovered, the more questions arose. Each answer seemed to lead to another enigma, each discovery another layer of complexity in a puzzle that seemed unsolvable. And then, just when he thought he was beginning to understand the scope of the conspiracy, another twist emerged, one that would change everything. Late one night, as he pored over the documents related to Project Echo, Michael received a phone call. The voice on the other end was familiar yet distant, tinged with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "It's time you knew the truth," the voice said. "Everything you've believed is a lie. Your father wasn't the man you thought he was. And neither are you." The words struck him like a physical blow, leaving him reeling. What did they mean? Who was behind this? And why now? Novella. As Michael grappled with the revelation, he began to question everything: his father's legacy, his own identity, and the very foundation of the company he had inherited. The lines between friend and foe blurred, and he found himself standing at the precipice of a truth so profound, so unsettling, that it threatened to consume him. But even as the darkness closed in, Michael knew one thing for certain: the journey was far from over. The answers he sought were within his grasp, but they came at a cost he wasn't sure he was willing to pay. And as he stood on the edge, peering into the abyss, he had to decide: would he step forward into the unknown, or retreat into the safety of ignorance? The choice was his. But with each passing moment, the shadows grew longer, and the truth more elusive. And Michael realized that sometimes, the hardest part isn't finding the answers, it's facing them. Sources. Michael's descent into the heart of the conspiracy had already cost him his sense of security, but the true price was yet to be revealed. The walls of his reality, once sturdy and unyielding, now felt fragile and porous, as if the very foundation of his existence was being eroded from within. Each new revelation seemed to peel back another layer of deception, exposing a truth more unsettling than the last. But it was the choices he was forced to make that truly tested his resolve. One evening, as he sat alone in his office, the weight of the world pressing down upon him, his phone buzzed with an incoming message. The sender was unknown, the message simple yet chilling: "You're not the only one looking for answers." A cold shiver ran down his spine as he stared at the screen, the words echoing in his mind. Who else was searching? And what did they know? Determined to find out, Michael began to retrace his steps, revisiting old meetings, conversations, and documents. It was during this process that he stumbled upon a series of emails, buried deep within the company's archives, that mentioned a project, Project Echo. The project was shrouded in secrecy, its details vague and its purpose unclear. But one thing was certain, it was linked to the very events that had set his life on this tumultuous path. As Michael delved deeper into the mystery of Project Echo, he uncovered a startling revelation. The project had been initiated years ago, not by his father, as he had believed, but by someone else entirely, someone with a vested interest in the company's downfall. The implications were staggering. Had his father been a pawn in a larger game? Had he unknowingly set the stage for his own demise? The more Michael uncovered, the more questions arose. Each answer seemed to lead to another enigma, each discovery another layer of complexity in a puzzle that seemed unsolvable. And then, just when he thought he was beginning to understand the scope of the conspiracy, another twist emerged, one that would change everything. Late one night, as he pored over the documents related to Project Echo, Michael received a phone call. The voice on the other end was familiar yet distant, tinged with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "It's time you knew the truth," the voice said. "Everything you've believed is a lie. Your father wasn't the man you thought he was. And neither are you." Author website Bruce Hanlon. +6. Jerry Jenkins Proven Writing Tips. +6. Medium. +6. The words struck him like a physical blow, leaving him reeling. What did they mean? Who was behind this? And why now? As Michael grappled with the revelation, he began to question everything: his father's legacy, his own identity, and the very foundation of the company he had inherited. The lines between friend and foe blurred, and he found himself standing at the precipice of a truth so profound, so unsettling, that it threatened to consume him. But even as the darkness closed in, Michael knew one thing for certain: the journey was far from over. The answers he sought were within his grasp, but they came at a cost he wasn't sure he was willing to pay. And as he stood on the edge, peering into the abyss, he had to decide: would he step forward into the unknown, or retreat into the safety of ignorance? The choice was his. But with each passing moment, the shadows grew longer, and the truth more elusive. And Michael realized that sometimes, the hardest part isn't finding the answers, it's facing them. As Michael stood in the dimly lit conference room, the weight of the world pressing down upon him, he realized that the conspiracy he had uncovered was far more intricate and far-reaching than he had ever imagined. The walls that had once seemed like barriers now appeared to be mere facades, concealing a vast network of deceit and manipulation that spanned the highest echelons of power. Each revelation, each piece of evidence, had led him to this moment, a moment where the truth was both a beacon and a curse. The phone call from his trusted colleague, Sarah, had been the catalyst. Her voice, once a source of comfort and assurance, now carried an edge of urgency and fear. "Michael," she had said, her words rushed and fragmented, "you need to stop digging. They're watching. They're everywhere." The line had gone dead before he could respond, leaving him in stunned silence. His mind raced as he replayed the events leading up to that call. Sarah had been his confidant, the one person he believed he could trust implicitly. But now, doubt gnawed at him. Had she been complicit all along? Or was she a pawn in a game far beyond their understanding? Determined to find answers, Michael had confronted Sarah the next day. Her reaction was one of shock and disbelief. "Michael, I swear, I had no idea," she had pleaded, her eyes wide with genuine fear. But the sincerity in her voice did little to quell the storm brewing within him. The pieces no longer fit together, and the puzzle seemed to grow more complex with each passing moment. As the days wore on, the pressure mounted. Michael found himself followed, his every move scrutinized by unseen eyes. His emails were intercepted, his calls monitored, and his every conversation felt like a potential trap. The walls were closing in, and escape seemed impossible. In a desperate bid for clarity, Michael had turned to his father's old journals, hoping to uncover some hidden truth that would shed light on the darkness enveloping him. Within the pages, he found references to Project Echo, a clandestine initiative that had been shut down years ago, or so he had been told. But the more he read, the more questions arose. Had the project truly been dismantled, or had it merely evolved into something more insidious? The final piece of the puzzle came when Michael received an encrypted message from an anonymous source. The message contained a single line of text: "The truth is closer than you think." No sender, no context, just those cryptic words. But as he stared at the screen, a chilling realization washed over him. The conspiracy was not just about the company. It was about him. He was the linchpin, the key to unlocking a web of deceit that stretched far beyond his comprehension. With the walls closing in and the truth within his grasp, Michael faced a choice: continue down the path of discovery, risking everything for the sake of truth, or retreat into the safety of ignorance, allowing the shadows to consume him. But in that moment, he knew there was no turning back. The game had changed, and the stakes had never been higher. The truth awaited, and with it, the answers to questions he had yet to ask. The storm that had been quietly building for weeks finally broke the night Michael was summoned to the company's remote research facility, an off-the-books location hidden in plain sight, just beyond the city limits. It wasn't on any map, nor in any official record, and yet every secret, every dead end, every sleepless night had been leading him here. His chest tightened as he approached the steel-paneled structure under a sky thick with clouds, the distant rumble of thunder echoing the dread in his mind. He'd come alone, against advice, with nothing but a briefcase of classified documents and a growing fear that the final truth might be more than he could bear. Inside, the air was sterile and humming with low mechanical noise, and down the winding corridor, he found them: David, his company's CFO and longtime friend, flanked by 2 security officers, and behind him, Sarah, her expression unreadable. The room was cold and clinical, illuminated only by the soft blue light of computer monitors, and in the center, a glass case containing a single hard drive labeled Echo Final. It hit Michael in a wave: this was it. The drive held everything: the genesis of Project Echo, the falsified financials, the cover-ups, the names of everyone involved. As he stepped forward, David raised a hand, not in welcome, but warning. "Think carefully about what you do next," he said, his voice void of warmth. "There's no walking back from this." Michael's fists clenched. For months, he had trusted David, confided in him, relied on him. And now, here he stood, revealed as the architect of the deception that had consumed his life. "Why?" Michael asked, his voice hoarse. "Why betray everything we built?" David's answer was calm, almost chilling in its clarity. "Because your father was never the hero you thought he was. He started this to protect the company, to keep it out of the hands of people who would destroy it. But it became bigger than us. There were others: investors, governments. You were never supposed to find out." As Michael processed the revelation, Sarah stepped forward, her eyes glistening with conflict. "He's not lying," she said quietly. "Your father made choices that hurt people, including mine. That's why I came to you in the first place. But now we're all part of it, and there's no clean way out." Her words cracked something inside Michael. Betrayal, layered with justification. Truth wrapped in manipulation. He reached for the hard drive, but the moment his fingers brushed the glass, the lights in the facility surged and alarms blared to life. Somewhere above, locks disengaged with a heavy metallic thud. On instinct, he ducked behind a console as armed guards flooded the corridor, an emergency protocol, triggered to protect whatever was on that drive. Bullets cracked against concrete, and in the chaos, David vanished into the shadows. Michael fought his way through the confusion, grabbing the drive and dragging Sarah with him. She stumbled but kept pace, and together they escaped into the night. But it wasn't over. Not even close. Back at his apartment, with sirens still echoing faintly in the distance, he booted up the encrypted drive. And what he saw wasn't just a record of financial crimes or company secrets, it was surveillance footage. Years' worth. Thousands of hours. Of him. Every step of his investigation, every conversation, every moment of doubt. They hadn't just been one step ahead. They had been watching the entire time. And in one final, heart-dropping moment, he saw a folder marked Phase 2, Activation, with his name at the top of the list. Michael stared at the screen, the implications settling like concrete in his chest. He was never the hero. He was the contingency. The failsafe. The one they groomed to expose the truth only when it suited them. The final twist wasn't that he uncovered the conspiracy, it was that the conspiracy had written him into its ending all along. And now that ending was no longer in his control. Would you like the final part to wrap up the resolution, or leave it fully open-ended for a possible sequel or follow-up episode? As Michael stood at the precipice, the weight of the world pressing down upon him, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, but not in the way he had ever imagined. The drive in his hand, the documents strewn across his desk, the conversations, the betrayals, everything had led to this moment. But in the final reckoning, it was not the information that mattered most. It was what he chose to do with it. The world outside seemed distant, irrelevant. It was a world of smoke and mirrors, where power shifted in the shadows, and the lives of ordinary people were manipulated by the few who held the strings. But Michael had been part of that system, too. He had been complicit in its mechanisms, its games. He realized then that his father had never truly been the figurehead he had imagined, but instead, a man who had been forced into his own web of lies, just like everyone else. The company, the research, the corrupt alliances, it was all an extension of a power struggle that spanned generations. And in the end, Michael understood that the greatest enemy wasn't the conspiracy itself, but the weight of what he had inherited. Sitting in his apartment, alone with the hard drive, he made the choice. The truth, the complete truth, was not something he could share without destroying everything his father had worked for, without unraveling a legacy that would ruin lives far beyond his own. But he couldn't sit idly by, either. The choice was agonizing, each moment stretching into an eternity as the clock ticked on, the city outside unaware of the storm inside. The files on the drive offered a dangerous proposition: expose everything, reveal the truth, tear the walls down for everyone to see, or bury it, keep the company, keep the illusion of power intact. He thought of Sarah, her conflicted face, her words echoing in his mind. She had told him there was no clean way out, and she was right. There wasn't. He could feel the tension in his bones, the fear of losing everything he had ever known, the fear of becoming just another pawn in a game that had already claimed too many lives. But there was something else, too. A flicker of hope. Because in the quiet, beneath the weight of it all, Michael understood that this was his moment to take control of his own fate. He could expose the conspiracy, dismantle the system that had been built on lies, or he could walk away, bury the past, and find a way to live with the consequences. He pressed the power button on his computer, and in the next breath, made the hardest decision of his life. In the weeks that followed, things began to change, subtly at first. The company, once a fortress, started to show cracks. Whispers of reform spread through the ranks as key players in the conspiracy began to turn on each other, their alliances faltering under the weight of Michael's final act. The hard drive, now encrypted with a series of government-level safeguards, sat locked away, its contents only known to him. But it was no longer about the information it held. It was about the power of choice. Michael had chosen not to burn it all down, not to make a martyr of himself, but to quietly reshape the system from within, to use his position, his inheritance, as a force for change, not destruction. It wasn't perfect. There would always be secrets, hidden agendas, and dangerous people lurking in the corners. But for the first time in a long while, Michael felt a sense of peace settle over him, a peace that came not from knowing everything, but from accepting that some things were too big to be fixed in a single move. And then, just as the storm seemed to clear, there was the knock. It was soft at first, hesitant. Michael opened the door to find Sarah standing on the other side, her eyes weary but determined. She didn't speak, just stepped inside. Without saying a word, she handed him a small envelope, the seal broken. Inside, there was one last letter from his father, a confession, a final piece of the puzzle that had been hidden away for decades. It answered some questions, but raised others. His father had known all along about the conspiracy, about the danger. But what shook Michael to his core was the final line: the truth is never really buried. It just waits for someone to uncover it. The words echoed in his mind as he looked at Sarah, whose face had softened with an understanding that passed between them without the need for spoken words. They both knew that this was far from over. The game had changed, but it hadn't ended. There was always more to uncover, always another layer to peel back. Michael had made peace with the choices he had made, But he had also come to realize something crucial. The truth, no matter how hard it was to face, would always have a way of finding its way into the light. As he sat back in his chair, looking out over the city below, the quiet hum of the world going on without a clue, Michael knew that while the storm had passed for now, there were still shadows lurking in the distance. And in those shadows, there were still answers waiting to be uncovered. His journey wasn't over, but for the first time, he felt ready to face whatever came next. The screen flickered, and as it did, Michael glanced at the final line of his father's letter one last time. The truth is never really buried. He leaned back, taking a deep breath, unsure of what lay ahead, but certain of one thing: it would be up to him to decide whether the truth would be his greatest weapon or his ultimate downfall. The choice, as always, was his. And with that, the story ended. But the echoes of the mystery, and the choices it had brought, would resonate long after the credits rolled.